So we all know that feeling, right? Settling onto the couch for a good sitcom.
Oh, definitely.
Yeah.
That comfortable feeling.
They're the shows that make us laugh,
Yeah.
sometimes make us think, and they kind of feel like familiar friends.
Mm-hmm.
But have you ever really stopped to think how much these comedies, these seemingly simple shows, reflect who we are,
Yeah.
as a society?
Absolutely. And that's exactly what we're diving into today.
Okay.
We've gathered some really fascinating insights.
Mm-hmm.
They really map out how sitcoms have evolved, right?
Yeah.
And it's pretty amazing to see how these shows, going way back to the black and white era,
Yeah.
haven't just entertained us.
No.
No, they've also mirrored our dreams, our struggles, and just that basic human need for a good chuckle.
Exactly. So our deep dive today, it's really about understanding that whole journey.
Uh-huh.
How have sitcoms, week after week, reflected and maybe even subtly nudged our cultural identities?
Yeah, from those early family shows.
To all the stuff we see on streaming now. By the time we're done here, hopefully you'll see those sitcoms you love in maybe a whole new light.
A richer context, maybe?
Yeah, understanding their place in this bigger cultural picture. Okay, so let's do it. Let's rewind way back. The Golden Age,
Yeah.
1950s, 60s.
The 1950s, that's really the birth of the sitcom as we mostly recognize it.
Okay.
You had shows like I Love Lucy, Leave It to Beaver, foundational stuff.
Mm-hmm.
They really established that focus on, everyday family life.
And that was important then.
Well, yeah, coming out of World War II, people were looking for comfort, for stability.
Ah, right.
And these shows often gave them, well, a kind of idealized version of that. Escapism, maybe.
And you can't talk about the 50s without talking about Lucille Ball. I love Lucy.
Oh, absolutely not. A legend.
Her comedy, the physical comedy was just, wow, groundbreaking.
Totally.
But what also gets me is her power, behind the camera.
Yes, that's a crucial point.
Here's this woman, not just the star, but a really sharp businesswoman.
Uh-huh.
In an era when, let's be honest, that was pretty rare for women in Hollywood, right?
Extremely rare. She was a force, no question. It's worth remembering, she co-owned Desilu Productions with Desi Arnaz.
Right. Desilu.
And that company, they produced some incredibly influential TV later on.
Wow.
That kind of control, that sort of entrepreneurial drive,
Yeah.
it was exceptional.
Yeah.
And it definitely left a huge mark.
Okay, so then the 1960s arrive, and the stories, they start to stretch a bit, don't they?
They do, yeah. Things broaden out.
We start seeing shows like The Andy Griffith Show, Bewitched.
Right.
What was the main shift happening there?
The 60s brought in more, let's say, varied narratives, even shows with fantasy elements like Bewitched.
Yeah, the witch married to the regular guy.
Exactly. Even those, they often found subtle ways to kind of explore changing social norms.
How so? Like under the surface.
Yeah, exactly. It was clever.
Yeah.
A way to touch on things happening in society, but, keep it light, keep it funny, accessible.
Mm-hmm.
This era really cemented the idea that sitcoms could be more than just, pure fluff.
Right.
They could actually start conversations, even if maybe indirectly at first.
Which leads us nicely into the 1970s, and that feels like a real turning point to me.
Oh, definitely.
Suddenly, sitcoms are grabbing onto some pretty big, sometimes controversial topics head on.
That's a really good observation. The 70s, it was a time of huge political and social change, right?
Sure.
And sitcoms started reflecting that much more directly. All in the Family is like the perfect example.
Archie Bunker.
Exactly. Through Archie, who had all these, very outdated, often bigoted views,
Mm-hmm.
this show just dove right into stuff like racism, feminism, the Vietnam War, fearlessly. It was honestly groundbreaking for TV.
And you got to give credit to Norman Lear there, right?
Oh, absolutely. He was the driving force.
He really seemed to push what a sitcom could even be. It wasn't just laughs anymore.
No.
It could actually make you think, maybe even, challenge how you saw things.
That's it.
Yeah.
Lear saw that comedy could be a tool, a powerful one, for social commentary.
Right.
By wrapping these tough conversations in humor, he made them, well, maybe easier to swallow. Less confrontational for a huge audience.
Open the door for discussions.
Yeah, discussions that might not have happened on TV otherwise.
Okay, so then the 80s come along. Another shift, another evolution. We get shows like The Cosby Show, Cheers.
Right, another interesting decade.
What was the big development then?
Well, if you look at the wider culture, the 80s had this growing desire for more diverse representation on screen.
Yeah.
The Cosby Show, for instance, gave mainstream audiences this portrayal of a successful, loving African-American family. That was huge. A really significant step.
Yeah, it felt important.
And then you have Cheers, which, okay, wasn't a traditional family.
No bar.
Right. But it created this incredibly strong feeling of community, belonging, in that neighborhood bar.
Everybody knows your name.
Exactly. So these shows, they just connected with a wider range of people by showing a broader slice of American life.
Okay, so we've covered the Golden Age, this more experimental time. Now the 90s hit.
Mm-hmm.
And for a lot of us, I think this is where we really connected with sitcoms. Shows like Friends, Seinfeld.
Yeah, the 90s definitely brought in a new vibe, a different style.
What defined it?
Well, that really quick, witty banter became key, and a focus on the kind of mundane but totally relatable parts of everyday life, especially for, young adults figuring things out, relationships, careers.
Friends nailed that, didn't it? That whole figuring out your 20s with your mates thing.
Captured it, yeah.
And then there's Seinfeld, which was just something else.
Slightly. Yeah, Seinfeld was different.
Jerry Seinfeld and Larry David called it a show about nothing, famously. But somehow, in that nothing, they found so much that was just hilariously true about, well, us, humans. What do you think the lasting impact of that concept was, that show about nothing?
What's fascinating about Seinfeld is just how innovative that whole premise was.
Yeah.
By focusing on those tiny, everyday annoyances, those social interactions we all have, but maybe don't talk about much.
Like waiting for a table or double dipping?
Exactly. All that minutia, they tapped into this, universal source of humor.
Okay.
It wasn't about big plots or, learning a lesson at the end.
No moral of the story.
Right. It was about finding the comedy in the small stuff.
Yeah.
And that approach, it really influenced a lot of sitcoms that came after it, profoundly.
Okay. Fast forward. 2000s and beyond. The whole landscape changes again, right? Especially with streaming taking off.
Oh, yeah. Streaming changed everything.
How did that new way of making and watching shows impact sitcoms?
Well, streaming really opened the floodgates. It broadened the horizons for sitcom storytelling massively.
Oh.
We started seeing much more diversity, more different voices, different kinds of stories being told.
More niche, maybe?
Exactly. Exploring more niche subjects and just a greater willingness to take creative risks with the format, with the content.
Like the mockumentary thing?
Yes.
Yeah.
The mockumentary style, which really blew up with shows like The Office.
Right, and Parks and Rec.
Or Parks and Recreation. Yeah. It offered this really fresh, often incredibly funny way to connect with characters. It felt more direct, more intimate somehow.
Yeah, like they were talking to you.
Mm-hmm.
And that kind of brings us right up to now, present day. We have shows like Brooklyn Nine-Nine or The Good Place.
Great examples.
It feels like sitcoms are still evolving, still pushing boundaries, but maybe in different ways now. What trends are you seeing?
Absolutely. They're still evolving. Contemporary sitcoms often tackle some pretty complex themes,
Like what?
Well, questions about morality, identity, even social justice sometimes. But they still keep that core element of humor.
Right. It's still got to be funny.
It's still got to be funny. Take The Good Place.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a comedy set in the afterlife.
Yeah. Wild concept.
That actually gets into some surprisingly deep philosophical stuff about ethics, about what it means to be a good person.
Huh.
It just shows how adaptable the genre is, doesn't it? How it keeps finding ways to talk about meaningful things, but still be entertaining and accessible.
Okay, wow. So we've really traced this incredible journey, haven't we, through sitcom history?
We have. It's quite a ride.
Before we sort of wrap up and think about what this all means for you, the listener, I found a few really cool, kind of mind-blowing facts about sitcoms I just had to share.
Oh, fun. Lay 'em on us.
Okay, first one. Did you know I Love Lucy back in the 50s was actually the first sitcom filmed using multiple cameras and in front of a live studio audience?
That's right. Yeah, that was a genuinely pivotal move in production.
Must have changed things massively.
Oh, it did.
Yeah.
Using multiple cameras meant more dynamic shots, smoother editing, and having that live audience, it just created this energy, That buzz really translated to viewers at home. It set a whole new standard.
Wow. Okay, and this next one might seem a bit obvious now, but the term sitcom, it's just short for situational comedy.
Shuckles.
Right.
Sometimes the simplest explanation is the right one.
But it really does highlight how important the situation, the setting, those everyday scenarios are for the comedy.
Precisely. The humor often comes directly from how the characters react within those relatable everyday situations they get stuck in.
Okay, but this last one, this one's kind of wild.
Ooh, okay.
Apparently, The Simpsons, which, by the way, is the longest-running sitcom ever,
Still going. Incredible.
has seemingly predicted a whole bunch of real-world events.
Ah, The Simpsons predictions, yes.
Like everything from Donald Trump's presidency to, get this, the discovery of the Higgs boson particle.
It is kind of mind-boggling, isn't it?
Totally.
It's definitely one of those fascinating pop culture things that people love to talk about. Now, whether they're actual predictions or just, coincidences we see in hindsight,
Who knows?
that's up for debate. But it absolutely adds another layer to the show's incredible legacy and its place in, our cultural bloodstream.
For sure. So, okay, thinking about all this evolution, what does it mean for you listening right now? Why should understanding sitcom history even, matter?
That's a great question.
Well, as we've kind of explored looking at these shows across time, it gives you this fascinating window, doesn't it? Into our own cultural stories, how society's views have shifted.
Yeah.
It's way more than just, feeling nostalgic.
Exactly. It's like a unique lens. You can use it to look at our own values, our beliefs,
Yeah.
and see how they've been reflected and maybe sometimes even shaped a little by these comedies we watch.
Okay. So with all that in mind, we wanted to give you a few, maybe actionable tips.
Yeah.
Ways you can deepen your own appreciation for sitcoms.
Good idea.
First off, if you go back and rewatch some of those older shows,
Yeah.
try watching them while thinking about the history, the culture of that specific time.
Ah, put them in context.
Exactly. It can really shine a light on stuff you might have missed before.
That's a great point. And maybe don't just stick to the big famous ones everyone knows.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Try exploring some lesser known sitcoms from different decades.
Yeah.
You might find some really unique perspectives, some innovative storytelling you weren't expecting.
Good one. Another thing, really dig into the humor itself.
How so?
Think about how they used comedy. Was it to tackle serious stuff? Reflect social changes? What was considered funny then? What were the lines?
Right. What could you joke about and how? That changes a lot over time.
Totally. And also, look out for the cultural references within the shows.
Ah, the little details.
Yeah, they can be like little time capsules, right?
Yeah.
Giving you a snapshot of the trends, events, people that were big back when the show was made.
Yeah.
Real insight into the era.
Definitely.
And finally, don't be shy. Connect with other fans online.
Yeah.
Jump into discussions. Share what you think. Hear what other people see in these shows. It can really add a lot to how you experience them.
That interaction definitely helps. And hey, for anyone who wants to, really dive in even deeper.
Yeah. Got some outside the box tips?
Maybe. How about this? Create your own sitcom playlist.
Ooh, I like that.
Pick a few key episodes from each decade we talked about. Watch them in order.
Chronologically.
Yeah. It can be a really cool way to actually see those changes in themes and style firsthand.
That's a fantastic idea. Okay, or how about this? Host a sitcom night.
Nice.
Get some friends together, pick a decade, maybe a specific show, have a viewing party. You could do trivia, talk about it.
Make it social.
Yeah, make it fun, make it a shared thing to explore this history together.
Absolutely. Sharing the experience definitely boosts the appreciation, leads to some good chats.
So, okay, as we wrap up this deep dive, we've covered a lot of ground, haven't we?
We sure have. From the 50s and 60s family comedies.
Right, those foundational shows. Through the more experimental, socially aware stuff in the 70s and 80s, all the way up to the diverse, boundary-pushing sitcoms we're seeing today.
Yeah?
It turns out sitcoms, they've done a lot more than just make us laugh.
Seems that way.
They've consistently held up a mirror to society, sparked conversations, maybe even nudged our cultural norms along the way.
And hopefully, as you keep watching your favorite sitcoms, old or new,
Yeah.
you'll maybe think a bit more about that cultural impact.
Yeah.
About the stories they're telling, both on the surface and maybe underneath.
And on that note,
Yeah.
here's one last thing for you to chew on, a final thought.
Okay.
As our society keeps changing, keeps evolving, how do you think future shifts will show up in the sitcoms of tomorrow?
Good question.
What new formats, what new themes might pop up as our world continues to change? Something to think about, maybe, next time you settle in for some laughs?